Okay, so we got a HTA 9022 conversion kit. I got this in the mail. Pretty excited to get it. Looks pretty nice. I kind of put it together a little bit just to see what it looks like as is without everything in there, just to kind of get an idea of how it fits. Played with it a little bit, opened up some of the packages just to kind of see some of the different things I'll got inside of it and what it is, what it does. Read through the instruction manual a little bit, but I ran into a couple snags as I was trying to do all this and thought, hey, you know, I'll put something together here and kind of show, help everybody out. Hopefully this helps you too. So leave all this stuff out of the way. Instruction manual is actually really well written. It was easy to read. Instructions are pretty simple. The only area that I think might be a little catchy is the extended magazine and bolt release. If you've never messed with any of that in there, that could get a little funky for you. It did for me. However, hopefully what we'll go through is what I did so you don't have to do that. All right, we're going to move that out of the way. So one of the things that I noticed is with my stock, my setup for my Ruger 1022, it's a little bit different than some of the other ones that I'm seeing out there. Some of them had a little bit of a sight here on the end portion and have the rail here on the top. I'm not the most familiar person with these in the world. However, distinctive differences like that showed me there was something a little bit different with mine. So there's a couple of different things when we get up here. Some of the guard portions for that, you know, I had a little bit of an issue with. So if you have a style like mine where the barrel seems like it's a little bit thicker, maybe no front sight rail and the Picatinny on the top, yeah. So safety first, nothing in the chamber but drop, get rid of the magazine, clear it out. All right, so what we'll do is we'll go ahead, take this apart. So it's got a little bit of a space in between the screw portions. So this is that synthetic stock. Sometimes on these there's a screw on these type of rifles, but with this just being a one-piece little synthetic, this is the only screw that holds this stock in place with this. So this screw is designed there to stay in. So once you undo it a little bit, it'll be loose enough that you can sit there and wiggle it around. And then for this, you kind of want to try to find a sweet spot here with your safety on and off, where it'll kind of go a little bit back and forth and then stay in the middle so that you can just sit there and easily slide this out. Super easy. However, again, this is supposed to stay in the stock, but we're going to need it later on. So go ahead and just remove it completely out. And then we'll just kind of stake it over here with the rest of them. So with the kit setup that I bought, I actually bought some extra goodies from HTA. These guys helped me out picking and choosing some different things when I was going through it. And another bonus that I thought was great was they were willing to offer a military discount. Reach out to those guys through their customer support if you want more information on that, but they're not sponsoring me. I'm just doing this because I'm tickled to have something cool to go out and shoot. And plus, like I said, I ran into some issues. I figured I'd help some of y'all get rid of those issues or not have them. But so I got a buffer portion. And then I got bigger charge handles, so we'll see here shortly. I haven't opened those up and messed with them, but we'll get into some of that here in a second. So a little bit of a block here. You probably want to punch to knock out some of these pieces. However, I will tell you, if it was anything like mine, they came out super easy, which was pretty nice. But the first two that you want to look at and focus on are these two big ones right here, this one and this one. So by just knocking these guys out, like I said, they came out fairly easy for me. cool. Just slid right out. Now we can take that and put it off to the side and then kind of focus down on here. Now, for me, one of the things and one of the issues that I ran into was this and this. These two right here are the two that you want to punch out. Do not punch this guy out for your hammer portion, and do not punch this guy out for your trigger portion. Bring it in a little bit closer. No, no, yes, yes. If you decide to go with the, and it came with the package, but it's the extended magazine and bolt release instructions. So these instructions are pretty awesome. Again, they show you everything that I'm just kind of walking you through as well. And they kind of give you visuals of it. The visuals are pretty nice, easy to read, easy to kind of go through. However, if you are like me and sometimes you just don't read instructions, you just kind of go with the flow and run things through. Yeah, so it's kind of my own fault. I ran into issues. It's nobody else's. But again, we'll see what we can do to help some others. So first one I would recommend taking out is right here. Now this one's for your magazine release portion. So you just kind of push that fellow through. He slips on out. Now before you do that, probably should have said this, you probably want to keep your finger here on this little piece, because once you pull that out, that guy wants to pop right out, which is fine. We'll just put them all right there. Since we're swapping in that bigger release portion, that's going to essentially replace this. So instead of having this, you'll have that. You can see that difference. It's pretty healthy. It almost even fits. It kind of fits in there. So then one of the neat things I liked is this slides off. It's one directional. So you can see the grooves here on this side set it up to be one directional. And then the grooves kind of stop. But it kind of gives you a little bit of an extended finger portion on it. It only goes back in one way too. Imagine that. So it's a little bit more stability there for you, which is one of the reasons why I thought, hey, with this bigger system, I'll want to run that in. And then what you want to do is once you have that out, so put that off to the side, and then we'll grab this portion to here. So now that you have that out, this right here, you're going to want to put your finger over this a little bit when you let this go, only because there's a spring right here attached to the hammer. And not that the spring is going to come out and hit you or anything, but you just kind of want to safety wise. See how I still got my finger on that right there? You might be able to see it. Now that spring slowly comes up. And it's pretty loose, which is fine. We'll get into that in a second. So as you pull that out, you want to grab this little clip here, pull that fella out, lay him down, pull that the rest of the way out, and then now this can come fully out. So here's the difference on that one. It might be difficult to kind of see with a black background, but what we'll do is we'll just grab the manual, and then now you can kind of see the difference there. So this is the original, and then this is the one that comes with the kit. So it's a little bit bigger, gives you a little bit more space down here, helps you out. So with this kit, whether I recommend it or not, it's up to you. Whatever fits best for you, your style. Just me personally, I thought it'd be a good idea. So we're going to take that one, we're going to set it off to the side. We don't need that one, and we don't need this one. So what we need now is these here like that, and this here like this with that fella. All right, so putting these back in, we're going to put this in first. Now, as you slide it in, you got to kind of go at a little bit of an angle here, because this piece, once it goes in, it's so long that you got to get it out on the other side first. So once you get it out on the other side first, and it can slide into that little bit of a notch there and get out of your way, then this portion will come into play. Now, I'll pull this out so you can kind of see. Here on the top side of this is a little bit of a groove. Now that groove is there for this bottom spring, and see how it's got a little bit of a bend in it? That bend wants to sit in that notch and help out with things. So once you get all that set back up in there, you can take your spring and push the bent portion down. As the bent portion comes down, that more flat portion comes up as well with it. And we'll kind of just piece all that together real quick. So I just sit here, I use one thumb to hold one end. I'm gonna slide this in a little bit. When I slide that in, I'm gonna poke it up just a little bit more with my finger so I can take that other portion there and slide that in too. Now from here, it gets a little tricky, but not too bad. What you're gonna wanna do is, as you slide this over more, that top spring portion that's poking out for you, you wanna push that down with one finger as you use your other hand. And see there how I missed. Get it down below. Now that I have that, between that little lip on this metal piece, right here, so on the stock one, between this lip and then this portion here, when you press it back in and you punch that back over, that right there is going to keep all of that in place. And that spring will essentially collapse together a little bit closer. So this piece right here, if it's flapping around on you, don't worry about it. It's supposed to. It's just when you go to use it later on and you go to put it back in and get everything taken care of, make sure that it's in that little notch portion there. So again, lessons learned. I don't think I could probably say this enough. Make sure that everything over here, these first two on this side, are good to punch out. Just leave these guys alone. I accidentally got into that, and then I got into it even further because, I mean, when I pulled the trigger, it wouldn't fire, and the mechanism just didn't work. And kind of almost like it is right now. I've got it fire punched out. I push it over to safety, it still won't do nothing. Oh, damn, it did it again. All right, well, that's fine. So lessons learned. What you're going to want to do, man, it's going to be difficult for y'all to probably see it, but when you look down in here and you're pushing your safety selector back and forth on that, down inside there's a bit of a grooved side as you twist. So literally as you twist the safety, there's a grooved side and then there's a flat side. You want the flat side to be facing up. And I don't know what I keep doing when I'm doing this to get this fella to twist over. But you push it up a little bit, get a hold of it, and twist it over. So you hear that little snap. That's fine. That slaps back in place again. So now, when I look down in there, I see a flat surface on my safety. As I go back and forth, I notice it's a little bit stiffer too. And now, safety on, the hammer actually works. So, hell. So if that comes out, slide it back down in there. Get that flat portion set up into the groove portions there, and then simply just push back again. All right, let's get away from all that. Ugh, I hated it. It was even worse the first time when I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I had to, thank you, YouTube. I had to get in there and do some research and do some learning for myself. So now with all this set up, this guy is going to come back into play. So with him, if you're having a hard time getting him to sit back in there, just keep wiggling it until he goes all the way in. So this portion is going to go up in there now. And it only goes in one way. It's going to go like this. And then as you ease back out on that, you can feel it now tugging. So take that, set it back in there, and then with this portion, once you got it in there, what I noticed is with this metal portion here, you got to kind of wiggle it around a little bit until it all gets back in there. But now, substantial difference here on mag release and bolt catch as well. So it's almost a little, ooh, it's almost a little bit of a two-piece portion here. But once you get everything all set up, again, everything's fine. Check your trigger mechanisms, everything else. Make sure everything's all fit in. And go from there. So, once you get all that taken care of, it's up to you if you want to go in there and play around a little bit more with it. If you want to find out what does what, good luck. But YouTube can always help you too, if this video doesn't. So, again, make sure this fella is up in the front. And then simply slide it back up into place. It was super smooth coming in and it was super smooth coming out. So I kind of expect it to be roughly about the same. As long as you line up your holes. Now, with those back in place, everything is good to go. Do a little bit of function check. All right, everything works and everything's back the way it used to be. Now, since I bought one of their little buffer portions here, I'm gonna go ahead and take a moment, put that fella in. So it replaces this one up here. So there's nothing necessarily back there. There we go. So punch it all the way out and simply just replace it with this one. And there we go. Pretty simple, pretty easy. I'll probably keep that for later. In fact, we'll just put all of that in a little baggie there. And hold on to it for later. Put that in there too. I'm a big fan of keeping the stock parts when I change things out, be it this, cars, whatever. Just sometimes you like the old stuff. Another thing to go ahead and test while you're here too is, does the magazine go back up in the magazine well portions? As you see, I simply just put it up in there. It went back in. Everything seems to be fine. Run it through, do another functions check on it. Put it safe, nothing, fire, pull forward, magazine comes out. So, now that you got all that, again, so mine is a little bit different. So I had to take off these Picatinny rails. I don't know the difference in the models. I'm not going to sit here and try to lecture anybody on it. I just know that mine was a little bit different than what I was seeing in some of the videos. So, hey, when there's change, just go out there, try to show the different options and present the different ways of handling things. So, super easy, flathead screwdrivers, they come right off. Still got some of the original lubricant there, probably from the manufacturer. All right, now with that off, we can kind of move into this fella. Do anything is all these, so on this other side, the left-hand side, all these little bolt holes that are already set up, you can go ahead and stick the nut portions into there and just kind of get them to seat. And it takes a little bit of work with some of these, but you can either do it now or you can do it once you assemble everything and do it one by one. It kind of recommends that you do it beforehand. So as you sit here and you just poke all those dudes in real quick, doesn't take very long. I mean, as you see, I'm sitting here going back and forth. However, one of the things that I noticed too, it's not really doing it right now, one or two of these kind of fell out as I was doing it. Again, I don't necessarily say anything negative against the Hightower guys. That's probably just me not knowing what the hell I'm doing, trying to figure things out as I go. So everything else has been good in quality. But if you decide you want to do it that route, cool. If you don't have to. So I'm not going to finish that right now. I'm just going to go ahead and kind of pull that dude apart. So I don't need the other half right now. I need this side. Let me get some things moved around here. All right, so when I did this, some of the things that I noticed that I thought were pretty cool is the trigger portion up here. It has the safety, so if it's on fire, we're gonna pick back up. It cut out there for a second, but we're back in. So again, what I was talking about was this portion here. It's got that safety up front here. So, you know, safety off. You sit here and you can see the whole entire mechanism comes back. And this is what actually pushes on the trigger. So with that safety on, when you rotate the other way, it doesn't really move a whole lot. So you can see, I mean, it moves just barely. But with that portion, you got more of a safety. This little hole right here was the safety hole for the actual safety extension that they give you. It only goes on one way, and it goes quite literally just like this flush. So we'll go ahead and install that now so you can see safety off, safety on. With that, you want to just sit here and push it down and give it that. Now, when I put this back in here, you got to be careful and you got to make sure that that little fella just lines up with that hole. I'm not going to do that quite yet because before I do that, I actually want to put this trigger mechanism portion here on first. So this shroud or guard portion here, this is all for the different receiver portion here. So it'll kind of help guide it a little bit as everything kind of flows around in here and does different various things. When you put it into this, it kind of, you got to wiggle things around a little bit to make sure that it seats and fits properly. Again, I'm not blaming anybody else on this. It's probably just me lacking knowledge and lack of understanding. But for it to get in there and sit for me, I had to kind of wiggle it and maneuver it a little bit. I actually watched the Hightower how-to video, and it was very helpful. But dude, that guy was a wizard, and he kind of just flew through it. And I didn't see him have any issues or snags like what I did. So yeah, I mean, kudos to the professionals versus obviously me, an amateur who doesn't know his head from his ass. So put this in here, just simply goes on like that. And then once you actually set it in here, you want to make sure that this portion is all nice and flush back here with that. And then that this guard system comes in here and sits. Now, once the barrel kind of fully flattens out and lays out, you still got to sit here and kind of maneuver things a little bit. Like I said, you're going to want to wiggle it around a little bit. This, you're going to make sure that, unlike what I just did, you make sure that it's installed. And then I would go ahead and just push it on through to fire side. So now that it's poked out, just to kind of help keep it set in place so that it doesn't go anywhere, so it doesn't move. This right here, once it's in the proper place, you'll see it poke out right here on this side. If it's not poking out or whatever, just kind of push it in there and make sure it's good. When it's flush up here, you know you have it right. So if it's back a little bit, do whatever you got to do to wiggle around, make sure that it comes flush with this little portion here. Now from here, it gets funky for me. Again, my setup is a little bit different than what I was seeing in some of the videos. My barrel seemed a little bit thicker than what I was seeing in some of these other video portions here. So these little shrouds here, I want to say these are like figure K in the manual. Yeah, K, your barrel bushing. So these barrel bushings, for these to be on here, be in place and everything else, it even goes in to tell you that if you have a certain type of barrel that you don't have to use these. However, I noticed if I didn't use it, there was a lot of gap and it was almost wiggly up here up front in this vicinity right here. And I didn't really care for that. So what I did though was I noticed with one of these bushings, if I get it in here, you got a more of a beveled edge and then this little hooked edge that kind of clips on the outside. So you can kind of almost just sit there and just rotate it in a little bit, or you can lift that up and just get it in there good and seated. Now for me, like I said, my barrel's a little bit thicker, so once I push it in there, it kind of helps stabilize it and hold it in place. If I put this other one on there, I will have nothing but issues. I ran into so many issues. There's a huge gap. Even when I sit here and I try to press them together, there was still a little bit of a gap. It still caused a little bit of an issue. And it didn't seem like it fit right for me. So I went without it. I thought it was a little bit easier to just do the one side, and it seemed like it fit nicer and more snug for me. This piece right here, I mean, it's self-explanatory. Once you're reading the instructions, everything, it's gonna sit here. That little guide is gonna go over this little whole portion. You want this to go over for here, but you want it to go underneath that metal. All right, so on that charging handle, you want it to go over it, but underneath for here. So once you get it in place, it's all set. There's nothing to it. Now from here, essentially you're done with all the internal guts and stuff. So it's, you know, anything else that you want to do to it, or you want to play around with it to kind of get used to it, go for it. But for me, there's nothing else to do. Issues that I found when doing this. Actually, I lied. Ooh, see, there we go, getting ahead of myself. Issues that I ran into, again, getting it to sit in here properly, making sure that this was nice and snug back here, everything fit in properly, everything was good, didn't have a whole lot of issues. Kind of when I test this right here, you can see it wiggling around. So the reason why it's sitting around is, if you remember earlier, I talked about you need this fella. This came out of the original stock. Now, getting these two lined up so that it catches onto this, what I had to do is when I lifted it up, I just had to kind of look down into that little hole and figure out where my rifle was sitting and how it was sitting to ensure that it went down into that bolt hole correctly. Once you do, I mean, it was super easy, super snug. And then now it's fully in place. It's not going anywhere. It's not going to fall out. I mean, I can lift it up and do this. The only thing that falls out, yeah, that little plastic piece. Hard. But back on we go. From here, put this on, get everything again. For me, I kind of had to wiggle it around a little bit. Just getting everything to fit up with my situations, my circumstances were just, they are what they are, okay? So once you get everything on there good and stabilized up in here, I noticed I really had to press on these to get them to go together. Now you can't really see it, but even once I push this together, there's not much of a gap. So for me to put that other shroud on there, there's just not, or not other bushing, there's just not enough space. So the one bushing though was nice. However, I'm sure once I go out and I go to shoot this thing, I mean, with anything that you got and you shoot, you're gonna have to zero it anyway, just to make sure it's good, because it's probably gonna shoot off a little bit and not as straight as I want it to. But whatever kind of optic system I want to put on this, or however, I'm gonna have to re-zero it anyway. But at least now, it's more stabilized and the barrel doesn't move around in there as much. So from this point, I mean, the instruction manual's right here. It gives it to you. It tells you you got all your screws. You go through here, you set your screws into place, you get everything going, and then once you've got it all set up and you're done, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pause it now. I'm just going to go in. I'm going to put the 2 screws here, 2 here, the 2 here, these 2, these portions, and then these portions. All right, so now we're pretty much got all these in. We're finishing up. Got one last screw here. So one of the things that I would caution and just say, hey, courtesy heads up. One of the reasons why I personally didn't like putting these in first for these actual little bolt head portions, sometimes they'd fall out, or as I'm messing around with it, so then I gotta turn around and put it back in, so it's like double the amount of work. It's just not fun. And some of the other things that I ran into is while I'm actually trying to put these in and just run them through, it pushes out on the other side or it snags. So it's beveled out to sit there and make that little hex head work. However, one of the things that I found is even doing that sometimes, it just doesn't want to stay in place. So I'd have to hold it almost like this, put my thumb on one side, zipper through, and then kind of play around with it and push from this side. Yeah, I mean, once it's in there, it don't rattle, it don't shake, nothing moves. I mean, it all sits pretty well. So from here, it's just moving on into the rest of it. Again, just follow the instructions. They're super easy. I mean, it tells you what screws to put where, which ones. There's particular ones, they're all different sizes. I mean, you got 2 of some, and then you got 4 of those ones. So the 4 are like number R's or whatever, and they go right here. Your 2 longest ones are like U's, they go here, T's go here, and then like the rest of it. Again, just follow the instructions. It's like I was saying earlier, if you follow the instructions on these, they're really well written. But if you're just hard-headed like I am, and you just kind of go your own thing, yeah, you'll run into some issues. But just refer back to the instructions. It's pretty easy. These are the original charge handles that come with it. Now you see, that's what you're supposed to be gripping on with. It goes there, and then you can easily and ambidextrously charge it from either side. For me, I seen they had an upgrade on one of their kits that they sold. It wasn't very much, it's only a couple extra bucks. But I thought that this was worth the extra money because it gives a little bit more of a grip to them. So just seeing that itself, to me, I felt like was worth the money. And then, I mean, it gives you these cool little extra portions here to just make it all nice and neat. So that'll set on like that. So there's still something there. We'll just run it in. So you put this little metal portion here up here into the groove, and you just slide it in. Now, for observation's sake, this right here is about what the factory one would look like if you went this route. So, I don't know if you can see that, but for me, like I said, I wanted more to grab onto versus just having a little bit of piece here. Now, if you don't want all this extra up in here as you're doing things, I mean, it might get in the way, but I mean, it just, I don't know, we'll see. But I wanted more to grab onto. So that's kind of the difference in what they look like if you decide to go that route. So there's that portion. Again, We'll just zip her right on in and be done. That was a, okay, so for the pair of grips, about $30 extra, which, whatever, I'll spend it. Spend it any day. So, that right there gives me a little bit more, like I said, to grab onto, and I can just kind of now just fully grip on it and go. From here, you got this portion in here, so it's just going to slide back in here. You got to kind of fiddle with it, but it'll sit almost like that right there. And then this right here is going to come up. And then that'll sit there. So you'll want that smooth surface. You'll tell the difference too when you're sitting here playing around with it. It's got a little bit more of like a beveled edge here. It'll sit in that spot. So with this here on it, it's kind of like your extra ammo storage, but you don't see from the top, you can still see the barrel. I don't know if that's a specific reason why they did it that way. Again, I don't get too far into it, but with this on there, I don't really see it at all now. So now I've got, you know, everything all set up. The magazine, if you want to still use your stock magazine, you gotta reach down in there. However, with this fella, I mean, it's a little bit of work. So if you're trying to go more toward like your banana clip or something like that, it'll be a whole lot better for you because you won't have to reach down in there as far. And then this sits pretty flush. Now, if I take that extension piece off, it'll have to reach down in there a little bit. And then I got to reach down in a little bit already just for, you know, bolt. All in all, again, so it's pretty much done. You want to take a look at it with what it would look like with clip in it for a banana style. Fits in. This is kind of what you're looking at now if you want that look for your banana, or if you don't have a banana but you just have a straight style, that might be out there. So taking a look at this front end portion, I kind of kept looking at it a little bit more, just kind of trying to figure things out. So what I ended up doing though, to get this to fit for me a little bit better and a little bit more secure with what I'm comfortable with, is on the inside here. So I took this apart, and on the inside there's a little bit of a groove, and that groove is what helps it kind of stay in place when you sit there and seat them. I grooved that out a little bit. I mean, it's a little late now. I could probably go in there and I can show you. Give it a second. Went ahead and took that off. That way you guys can kind of see. But what I did was took a Dremel, went in there, and so there's like a square notch groove portion in this area, and this lip here, that's where it will sit into that when you put it in there, and then it'll sit down in that little groove down here a little bit. But what I did is for me, I went ahead and I zipped that out a little bit to kind of make it a little bit more flush, so that lip on this could twist over a little bit more, and then that way it more, you know, it still gives that nice snug feel right here where you got that bushing kind of holding it in and it's in place, and that way it's not flopping around or anything else as if I didn't have the bushing on it. But then what I noticed when I did that was when I kept messing around with it, it wouldn't sit well because of that portion there. So on both sides, I kind of zipped that out a little bit. And then, you know, now if it's nice and snug, everything's in there well. It kind of holds the barrel a little bit better. Once everything is kind of put back together, you really don't know. Keeps cutting out on me. But anyway, so that's what we did up there. I'll go ahead and just finish this up since obviously my camera doesn't want to play fair game. But if you have any questions, shoot me a message, hit me up, ask away. I'll tell you what I did, other issues, concerns I had. All in all, I'm extremely happy with the whole product, everything about it. I don't see any flaws or anything on it that, you know, other than, like I said, just trying to make it fit to what I wanted personally. But it's looking great, and I'm looking totally forward to doing something with it, painting it cool, and taking it out and just shooting the hell out of it. But hey, thank y'all. Good luck and enjoy.